Spider's back!
We want spiders, CFL's red zone.
Hit it!
Spider, spider, here comes spiders, CFL's red zone.
Hit it!
Spider, spider, here comes spiders, CFL's red zone.
Hit it! In the red zone. How you doing? Spider's back! Thanks a lot for the views last time. I really appreciate it. They seem, to be popular. The video that sort of ran into the other video. I got quite a few views. I really appreciate it, and I never asked anybody to subscribe, but please maybe subscribe if you could. I'd love to have you back, and thanks so much for watching. I appreciate all the support. Any amount of views to me are big views. 1, 2, 3, 80, 100, 400, 500, whatever. I really appreciate all of them. Thank you so much for the support. And I just wanted to just mention the Halifax wildfires, that large Halifax wildfires out of control. I mean, thank God for the rain yesterday, but 150 people that lost their homes in Tantallon, and 200 structures lost, damaged, and a nursing home and everything. But it's very sad out in Hammonds Plains, Tantallon, 15 minutes outside downtown Halifax, and in Shelburne County and Barrington Passage. The wildfires there, that 20,000 hectares, it's 48,000 football fields. Unbelievable. Just think of that destruction and what it's done. And the liberals try to politicize it and call it climate change. Listen, wildfires of this nature, this size, I mean, they don't happen. It could be a lightning strike, but that's only 5 to 10% chance of that. It's 90% humans that actually light them deliberately. They're arsonists, okay? It's arson, or they're from negligence, okay? Humans set them, okay? Negligently, okay? So I just have my hearts go out to all the families that lost their homes, and all the destruction, all the damage and loss, and forests, acres of forests, or green space, Nova Scotia. It's very sad, and it's a sad day, but let's hope for more rain. That should be coming, hopefully. They put these fires out, and I don't want to say any more than that, because I'll get even more upset, because it's unbelievable to think that because of the carbon tax coming, it's going to destroy the economy and basically bankrupt us, the huge carbon tax, and he wants to put another one on, Trudeau, and trying to politicize these wildfires as climate change. It's unbelievable to think how corrupt they are. They're liars, and they get all the media bought off to lie for them and cover up their corruptness. Anyway, I don't want to get into it because they're going to be really upset. The WAG went down, imagine 08 WAG, historical site in Halifax went down, and they say, there's no evidence. Same with these fires, they're going to cover up all the while. No evidence. Yeah, they know who did it, and everybody knows who did it. Just like historical property. The Public Gardens historic tea room in Halifax, and the public gardens being destroyed and trying to be burnt down. The tea room. Everybody knows who done it. The Liberal Mayor Savage and Trudeau's druggies in the drug-tent cities, all over our streets and our sidewalk and our public parks. They're the ones doing it. And I talked to a gardener down in Public Gardens, and he told the police, "There's your signed cesspool of suspects right over there in those druggy tent cities right across Park Victoria, and they're all downtown, drug pen, all over criminal graffiti, all over streets or intersections, and they're down there. They're not far from the historical WAG 1908. Imagine, burnt to the ground. Oh yeah, Yeah, anyway, it's unbelievable to live in the city that we're living in, run by a bunch of leftist, communist liberals that are destroying our city, in with Trudeau, and it's unbelievable to live in a beautiful city like Halifax being run by these corrupt, basically, I call them criminals. Anyway, that's my rant on that. I could say a lot more, but it's all being covered up, the truth of what they are, what they do, anything for power, money, and control, and even politicized wildfires that took 150 homes from people, saying it's climate change. Anyway, I don't want to get any more than that. It's 5 minutes of that, but I wanted to get it off my chest. I mean, a lot of people feel the same way, and we're being silenced again, and the truth is not being told. It's unbelievable the corrupt world we're living in. But let's get into my session, and let's talk about CFL season starting next week, and they're going to have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's a change for Sunday. I hope in Saskatchewan there's an afternoon. I think it is. It needs to be. Okay. So I just want to make also a comment about some of my last two videos that seem to be quite popular. Someone made a comment saying a lot of good points you make. By the way, I tell it the way it is. I speak from my heart. I speak what I believe. I seek out the truth, the real truth that's being suppressed today and silenced. We're living in a corrupt world, I'm telling you, when that's happening, which it is. That's exactly what's happening. So anyway, someone reached out and made a comment about my videos, said there's a lot of good content and valid points, but I need to improve my production, presentation, and so forth. And I checked his name. He's in TV production and so forth. I just want to say this. You're allowed to have your opinion, and thanks for the comments. But he may think they're constructive, but with me, I'm from the old school. That's why I like the Guess Who all remaster stuff from reel to reel, because I had a small digital recording system and a very homemade job, an expensive one, that I didn't like the sound of the recording digitally. I like the tape. I like tape, reel to reel. I like tape, and personally myself. And this is an old camera. And yes, if I had a better camera, it's only 480. If I had a 1080, I like it because of the remote. And I'm from the old school. It would be a lot sharper, the set. All the everything that's set up here. And by the way, everything I do is authentic, so there's no remakes. It's totally live. Everything, it takes me over 2 hours to set this up. It's all authentic. It's not like they're using digital, like the key is in his production studio, where everything is digitally done with green cards, everything basically fake, with graphics and so forth. But everything is real here. Everything that is near me is everything I set up physically myself, my hands. It takes a lot of creativity to do it, and it's totally authentic, and it's a lot of hard work. It takes me 2 hours and more to set this up. And I'll go back to my main set, because I'm going to do, I got my radio, by the way, here's an announcement. I got my radio ad blitz pitch done. It's a 2.5 to 3 minute pitch. I'm going to actually do it on set, live, when my son gets home. June 10th he's coming home, so within that 2-week period I'll have it done. I'm going to put it up on YouTube. I'm going to use the audio to call into all the CFL, well, when they talk CFL in CFL cities across Canada. Some of them know who I am, and some of them even know about my CFL Reds Army, like Jamie 9 and the Green Zone. So I'm going to get on all of them right across Canada in CFL cities, and where they talk CFL. And I'm going to say Spiders here, and then I'm just going to let the audio play, and hopefully allow it to go for 2.5, and I'm going to get my CFL Reds Army out there with a radio ad blitz pitch on my Spiders CFL Reds Army. Doesn't that sound great? And by the way, my son is working on my paraphernalia, but I said I'm going to work for Touchdown Atlantic 2023, which I'm going to talk about as well on this set, and on the Canadian ratio again, for good reason. And yeah, he's working on, he's got a mock-up of it. It's going to be really cool. And I'm not going to show you the mock-up, because hopefully it'll be approved that they can do it. And what I want done, the design and so forth, the colors and what I'm putting on my Spider CFL Red Zone jersey, dress up for Touchdown Atlantic. And I'm going to have lots of brochures too. I'm going to order more brochures from my son, and I'm going to have hundreds of brochures to give out. Okay, so, and to the team, Saskatchewan Rough Riders and Toronto Argonauts at their practices as well. I'm even thinking about trying to get, I have a banner, but I'd like to get a flag for Touchdown Atlantic too, you know, with my banner that's in front of you on the flag. I'm going to talk to my son about that as well. So anyway, so that's the scoop on that, and that's what's happening for Touchdown Atlantic 2023, and when I plan how to get my CFL Red Zone rule out there. And I have other plans as well. I'm still thinking about seriously doing a podcast, and I need more time on that, but I'll give you an update when I think I'm close to putting together a podcast on my CFL Red Zone rule. But anyway, let's talk about the CFL season coming, okay? And by the way, the preseason games, I mean, the one in Montreal, you couldn't see it on, because CFL is doing actually streaming of them, and they signed a small TV deal, but it's something with CBS, and they're streaming some like preseason as well. But the Montreal game, unless you're at RDS, you couldn't see it against the Tiger Cats, the preseason game. But it was interesting at the end of the game, I listened to the radio, and they were saying that how the Alouettes can't even really, they haven't even got enough 7 really good starters. And by the way, that's supposed to go to 8 this year, but there's some discrepancy about the American national, 2 national Americans that would take 2 of the spots of the ratio. We're going to 8 from 7. You imagine that? The guaranteed Canadian handcuffing, dictating Canadian ratio, starting ratio on half the roster, guaranteed Canadian. Can you imagine? So anyway, because of the 49% of the American nationalized Canadian or nationalized American spot to take, that would take 49% of the playing time, that would take one of a Canadian national spot. Can you imagine? Isn't this just ridiculous? And because they can't, you need a mathematician to figure it out. So they can't do it. So it's on hold, and I don't know why this don't realize. Just like I hope the new Montreal Alouette owner says, okay, I like to get top Laval Quebec players because they come Quebec if they're good enough to play on my team, to be on the roster, the Alouettes, and to start if they're good enough. But he's got to stand up and say, I'm not gonna be forced to play them if they're not good enough to start. I'm not. I'll develop them, put on a practice roster, but I hope he stands up against the ratio, because the Montreal Alouettes, I mean, they want to put 4 offensive linemen. They're not good enough. They're overpaid because they're forced to start them, forced to have them on half of Canadian CFL team roster. Can you imagine? And have to start 7. It was supposed to be 8 this year, but because they couldn't work out that 49% American nationalized ratio percentage, whatever they call it, it's ridiculous. It's on hold the next year. So anyway, CFL teams and owners and general managers have to stop this. 7 more years of this, come on. It has to stop. The Canadian Players Association need to be stopped. Randy Ambrosie, who's in bed with him, needs to be stopped. And the Canadian ratio needs to be stopped in its tracks. The Canadian ratio needs to go. It needs to go. It needs to be eliminated. It needs to be abolished. Gone. And the Canadian Players Association, made up of mostly Canadian players and carefully selected Canadian old linemen that are getting way too much money because they force their hands to give more money because they're forced to start them because of the Canadian ratio. They have to be abolished. Their union has to be abolished. And because the CFL cannot be a player. They cannot grow their fan base. They cannot grow their league unless they're allowed to, like other professional sports leagues, like the NHL, like the Major League Baseball, like the NFL, of course, and like the NBA, and even MLS soccer. They're all allowed to start, recruit, okay, put on their roster at training camp, okay, and pick the best roster, and allowed to pick the start the best players start and play them for an entire game in their professional sports leagues. So the CFL aren't. They can't. They're handcuffed. They're handcuffed by the dictating Canadian starter ratio, the handcuffing dictating starting ratio. By their handcuffing, Canadian Association Union made up of carefully selected Canadian players and carefully selected old linemen. And their ring leaders, Randy Ambrosie. Randy Ambrosie's got to go as the commissioner. He fought the CFL in court when they wanted to get him the Canadian ratio, when he was part of the Canadian Players Association. He's a conflict of interest. He's got to go, and he's a liar, and he's a big bullshitter, okay? You know, he said he was going to come down here, okay, a few weeks ago. He's supposed to be down in May, and for meetings with potential CFL owners and talk about a pop-up temporary stadium for Halifax, right? To get the Atlantic Schooners, the 10th CFL franchise. He never showed up. He's a liar. He was just interviewed in Hamilton at the Hall of Fame there just recently, a few days ago, and they asked him, do you have an ownership group in Halifax? Do you have a guarantee for even a pop-up temporary stadium for a CFL team to play in? He has no answers. You know what? Because he hasn't done anything, because he's a liar. He's a bullshitter. Just like he bullshitted me on my CFL Red Zone rule. Said he was going to present it to the Innovation Rules Committee. CFL, the new Innovation CFL's Rules Committee, he didn't do a thing. He lied. He's a liar. He's a bullshitter and a liar. He's destroying the CFL. Him and the Canadian Players Association that he's in bed with their handcuffing, dictating Canadian ratio, that's destroying the CFL. Listen, I was looking at a list of players, cuts. All the cuts are being made now. The season starts next week, the CFL 2023 season. And out of 21, 16 players are American, all gone as Calgary Stampeders, including Muhammad, who was a star player, and Dennis. They're gone because of the Canadian ratio, and a lot of other American players are gone because of, you know, a lot of them, out of that 30, are gone. And they're not going to come back to see if they got the USL, the XFL, and the NFL. They're not going to come back. They're not going to be able to get these players back and say, you go up to the CFL, you win your spot on a roster spot, and even win a spot to start, and you get sent home because of Canadian ratio for weaker Canadian players because of their passport that have no business being on a CFL field. And they have to have backup, and half the team has to be Canadian players. When the top Canadian players are going down in the NFL and signing, who's over 30 now, and the last CFL draft was the weakest Canadian draft, of course. The top Canadian players don't even show up to the combine. They don't care about the Canadian CFL draft. They're going to NFL camps, training camps, and signing in the NFL. What a joke. The CFL needs an open draft, and they got to be allowed to draft and recruit the best players, okay? Best available, most talented players to start and play in the CFL for an entire CFL game, okay? That's what has to happen. And then there'll be a player, like every other professional sports league can, okay? The CFL handcuffing Canadian ratio needs to go. Needs to go, and it needs to go now. And Randy Ambrosie needs to go with it. And my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule that's staring the CFL right in the eye, every single CFL game it's there, just waiting to be adopted by the CFL, is a game changer and a winner, and it's naturally tailor-made for CFL 3-down football, and will be the biggest and the most innovative rule, CFL new rule, that's full of drama, and the most entertaining, most exciting, and most significant new CFL rule in the history of the CFL, and probably of all of CFL 3-down football, because our third down will be more exciting down and full of drama in the red zone and more entertaining than the NFL fourth down in the red zone. You know why? Because 4 downs are too many downs in the red zone, especially little tiny wee 10-yard end zone, 55-yard wide field in the NFL with 4 downs. You kidding me? It's an absolute joke. Too many downs. And in the CFL, when there's too many 2-and-outs in the red zone, which they are, resulting in more boring, non-eventful, predictable, non-eventful, easy chip shot field goals that my CFL Red Zone rule will completely eliminate. 2 down stops are so unappealing. There's too few downs. But 3 downs in the red zone is the ideal number of downs, which my CFL Red Zone rule will guarantee. because if the third down's needed in the red zone, CFL teams on offensively playing exciting 3-down football with SPYDER CFL red zone rule, okay, to score a touchdown. And by the way, okay, at 18% guarantee more touchdowns in the red zone with SPYDER CFL red zone rule, at a 54.8% of average touchdowns scored amongst 9 CFL teams in the CFL for a regular CFL 3-down game. Season, resulting in 50 more touchdowns scored in the red zone in the CFL for a season. You can imagine. And you imagine, a few years ago, the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the red zone only had 35% of an average percentage of touchdowns scored in the red zone. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? And they had the most 2-and-outs. It was insane how many 2-and-outs. And by the way, 2021 ran Rob Vanstone. You know, he is a Regina Leader Post. Okay, he's an iconic sports writer, and he wrote a book on the classic Grey Cup game, 1989, Saskatchewan Roughriders Hamilton Ticats at the Sky Dome. I mean, he said SPYDER in 2021, he sent me an email and said, CFL couldn't write a better script for my CFL Red Zone rule to be made part of a CFL 3-down game of football, because they only had an average of 51% of average touchdowns scored in the red zone amongst 9 CFL teams in the 2021 season. Can you imagine? Farr and Logie now has approved my CFL Red Zone rule, endorsed it, actually. Give it stamp approval, just like Steve Armitage, who's done 27 Grey Cups. He's a sports icon. So Farr and Logie said that if it came to a vote, that's a TSN reporter and CFL broadcaster, he would vote for it to make part of a CFL 3-down game of football. So that's 3 prominent Canadian sports icons and popular, 2 icons, and Farr and Logie is a very popular sports figure. Okay, 3 of them endorsed my CFL Red Zone rule. And by the way, Randy Ambrosi, the only reason you didn't adopt it and you pushing your stupid hash mark rule will do nothing, by the way. Okay, it hasn't done nothing and will never do nothing. It's a joke. Like Mark Tresson said it's a minor little gimmicky alteration. Didn't do anything. Said, oh, you have way more touchdowns, less 2-and-outs. Come on, you have more 2-and-outs, more short little passes. Field goals being missed because of narrow hash marks. Hit from 20 yards out from the narrow hash marks, hitting him the upright. Come on. It's unbelievable. Hey, my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule, they eliminate 2 biggest killers, 2-down football stops, and resulting in predictable, non-eventful, distasteful, easy chip shot field goals in the red zone, all completely gone by SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule. We only have a few minutes left, so I got to talk about Touchdown Atlantic. I haven't got many minutes here, so got to move it, right? Okay, so we got 5 minutes. I could get on, I'm really on my CFL Red Zone rule. I could be talking a lot more. There's a lot more. Go on my Facebook page. There's all kinds of my full presentation there, the 10 super features and benefits, all the data, all the stunning numbers, and so forth. They're compelling. It sells itself. Okay, so Touchdown Atlantic 2023 in St. Mary's. I was going to show some pictures, but I don't think you could see them, but I was down there. So it was 7,500 seats on one side. That could have been 9,000, but there's an exchange that sticks out. There's a building that they built on the cafeteria on that side where most of the seats are going to be, and so they lost 1,500 seats there. And they could never build a double-decker there because of that exchange, but they put that addition on. I don't know why they ever did that, so they weren't very serious ever doing anything there as far as a stadium at St. Mary's. So they could never build a 20,000 seat pop-up temporary stadium there in St. Mary's for a CFL team. It's virtually impossible. The buildings on the other side, there's only 1,000 seats. There's all kinds of concrete buildings. Just check out St. Mary's football field, and you'll see all the concrete buildings. There's only 1,000 seats over there, okay? And maybe they could put 2,000, but there's an old dressing room that sticks out, and there's also on top of it, there's like a patio, because there's an alumni bar that they stand on top of there, and there's only 1,000 seats on the other side. The end zone's only going to have about 800 seats, so maybe 11,000. But remember the makeshift of 7,500 on the main side by that exchange extension that's, you know, sticking out, and that's why they couldn't put 9,000 in, because there's 40 rows up to about 70 yards, about 35 some yards. There's 30 rows. It goes 10 yards in the end zones pretty well. That's on the track, and they're not going to get rid of their track and field athletics. My son was track athlete of the year there at St. Mary's. He broke a record, ran the 100 at 10.8 seconds. The grass apparently ran at 10.9 in college. Imagine? My son ran it without steroids. Not saying he was on steroids, but most of them are in the Olympics, as he went to the Olympics. But anyway, my son just didn't pursue his track athletic, you know, the scholarship, so he probably would end up in the Olympics too. I'm not kidding you. That's what Debbie Brown, who went to the Olympics as a coach and said, told me. I believe her. But anyway, touchdown Atlantic at St. Mary's. The problem is they'd have to be able to build on the other side of the buildings. They'd have to use a track to build up. They'd have to get rid of the dressing rooms. They'd have to demolish them. That all that sticks out on that balcony by the alumni bar, that would all have to go. They'd have to go out all the way to the end of the track and go up over the building, and probably they could put maybe 65, 7,000 down in the end zones. They could get maybe 20,000 in there, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to get rid of the track and field. And I mean, they could push it back at that side with the 7,500 at St. Mary's now, the makeshift stadium that's up. They could push that back off the track, but they probably even get less. And they get only maybe 2,000 the other side, so maybe they could get 9, and then the end zones, come on, 15,000, 12,000, you can't have a CFL team with Atlantic Schooners, you can't operate there. So that's a sad story, and the Wanderers grounds is being basically, Derek Martin, the owner of the Halifax Wanderers grounds, in bed with Mayor Savage and the leftist liberals, the radical liberal councillors, and they're going to put, they want to build their Mickey Mouse little 10,000 CPL little fabricated stadium there, right? When CPL, Winnipeg will be gone next year, and CPL soccer, York is up for sale, Edmonton went down, Halifax aren't doing well on the scoreboard, but good, decent attendance, but one franchise can't keep the league afloat. Okay, they're averaging about less even 3,000. Anyway, Touchdown Atlantic 2023 at St. Mary's is going to be there this year, but I don't know what's going to happen after that. I think the CFL is going to end up going to Quebec for the 10th franchise, because Ambrosie's got nothing going here. Don't believe a word he says. It surprised me, Ambrosie, but you know, you suppress my role deliberately. I don't trust you at all. No one trusts you. Nobody likes you. You need to go. The Canadian ratio needs to go. The Canadian Players Association needs to go. And they need my CFL